sister was hanging out yesterday. We was reminiscing about some of the whoopings we took by my grown. 98% of the whippings I took in my life were by my grown, okay? My grown used to use anything that was in her reach, okay? She used to make us get a switch off the tree. If you don't know what a switch is, it's a branch off the tree. She used to use paddles, extension cords, those old curtain rods that they don't even buy no more. You can get them at the dollar store now. She used to use belts, anything she could use to whoop us. Those whoopings used to hurt, okay? And a lot of you right now, you've experienced those whoopings, whether it's from your mom, your dad, or your grandparents. You experienced those whoopings. We had a case with child abuse, and that's what me and my sister was laughing about. We had a case with child abuse. But we was also talking about how children today shouldn't and can't handle the type of beatings we did. How our grown-ups preparing us for a life that we knew we was experiencing. When we go outside those doors, they were trying to prepare us for life. And how much life was going to abuse us, be yourself. She's trying to prepare us to have self-respect for ourselves, but also to have respect for other people. The beatings my grown took, I never looked at as abuse, because I never felt like it was from a place of hate, but from a place of love, because I knew she loved us. She loved us because with every beating that she gave us, she also gave us a talk, explaining to us why that we are behind wood, and why it's important for us to behave ourselves when we step outside the world, because what was waiting for us. But what about our children today? I did an episode called Spare the Rod, Spoiled Child, and a lot of conversation about that episode centered around the Bible and how it's Old Testament to whoop your children. And if you don't whoop your children, how they're going to be spoiled and they're going to go out here and they're going to just act a whole fool. This is why so many fears are being shot up. There's so much violence in the world because there's not enough discipline with our children. People want to talk about the biblical sense of it. Most people want to talk about, well, this is how I was raised and I was given beatings. Well, once again, I have to remind you people, we were getting prepared for a world that's a lot different than the one we live in today. Not because there's different rules against child abuse, but just because the world is a lot different. It's a lot more confusing. It's a lot more stressful, especially for young children. There's transparency everywhere. Children exposed to much more than we was. So what we can hide from life, children can. As much as children try to avoid the outside world and the pain from outside, it shouldn't hurt for them to go home. It shouldn't hurt for any of us to go home. But for a lot of us, it do. So let's talk about it starting with children. Did you know 700,000 children a year gets abused? And I'm not just talking about physically abused by beatings. I'm not talking about disciplinary action. I'm talking about sexually abused, verbally, mentally. I'm talking about starved. Children get abused in so many different ways. And most of the times, 90% of the time, when a child got abused, it's someone from a person they know very well. A person they're very intimate with, a person they see, they know that abuses them. For a lot of children, it hurts for them to come home. It hurts for them to come home because they know what's waiting for them. Imagine coming home and being fearful that you're going to be sexually assaulted. Imagine coming home and worrying about getting punched in the back of your head, getting beaten to the ground, kicked, smacked, and you don't even know why. You don't know why. Because your mom and dad had a bad day. Just because your father lost his job. Or just because you look too much like your mom or your father. Imagine all these reasons, all these things that children have to experience. Imagine going home knowing that you will not get meal, that the only thing that's going to help the starvation, that belly ache that you're feeling is sleep. Imagine the psychological warfare that you have to deal with at home of a parent sitting there constantly telling you what you won't be, what you can't be. And we talk about that a lot on the show. You as adults, you experience that. Somebody say your limitations, but what if those limitations are a lot less lower than the ones you experience as an adult? Your children experience a lot lower limitations, where you're constantly reminded about your weight. You're constantly reminded that you eat too much. You drink too much. Constantly reminded how dumb you are. You just deal with a lot of mental abuse. And the difference between mental abuse and physical abuse, we can heal from the wounds of physical abuse, but what about mental? 700,000 children a year will experience this. Some form of abuse. 700,000 children or more. And this year, it will hurt for them to go home. But let's expand beyond just children. Let's talk about women and men who suffer, who are afraid to go home. How many women are afraid to go home? Because they're beaten by their husband, abused by him, psychologically, mentally abused by him, physically abused by him, sexually abused by him. Then you say, well, how can a husband sexually assault his own wife? How can he rape his own wife? Because sexual encounter has to be consensual between two people. That means the woman has to be agreeable that she wants it as well as the man. And if one doesn't, regardless if they're married or not, it's sexual assault. That's going against a person's will. How many women who are sitting at work right now are afraid to go home? Because they know when they go home, some type of hurt is waiting for them. Whether it's physical abuse, mental, sexual abuse. And they have to suffer in silence. How many people out there right now, you suffer in silence? Because you're afraid to tell someone how you feel. For multiple different reasons, you're afraid to tell somebody. Because see, as a man, and we talked about this also on the show before, as a man, can you really tell someone that you're being abused? Imagine if you come home as a man and your wife is abusing you, talking about beating you up. Could you imagine telling somebody? Could you imagine telling your friends, your co-workers, your family members, yo, my wife just beat me up. I'm afraid to go home. It hurts me to go home. Could you imagine that? A lot of you feel like it's a laughing matter. It's a joke. It's a ha-ha moment. You telling me your wife is beating you up? You ain't realizing the pain that man's feeling, the suffering that man's feeling. Because you can't imagine your wife putting her hands on you. You can't imagine your wife psychologically abusing you, verbally abusing you. So you can't be empathetic or show empathy for that man who's suffering. A lot of you look at women who are suffering in abusive relationships and a man's beating on them. And because they're afraid to leave, what you say is, oh, you're stupid. Why are you choosing to deal with it? Oh, you must like it because you're staying with that man. There's no empathy for that woman who's suffering in silence. And you wonder why people suffer in silence. They suffer in silence because they worry about being judged, being criticized, being crucified from the people who they come to and look for comfort, look for help out of a complicated situation. And you say, why is it complicated? 1 + 1 = 2. So if you're getting abused, if you're getting beat on, then you should just be easily just depart from that situation. You should easily leave. What does love got to do with any of this? What does love got to do with staying with somebody who's physically, mentally beating you? Constantly verbally beating you down, always talking about your weight. Always talking about how you look, how you dress, how stupid you are. Why would I want to stay with somebody like that? Why are you staying with them? Why don't you just leave not understanding? Love is not like a light switch that you can turn on and off. Love is a confusing place. Love makes us all do some things that make us question our own sanity, our own choice, our own common sense. But is there a reason to leave people to suffer in the dark? What about those children as we go back? As we go back to those 700,000 children a year who suffer from some sort of abuse. What about them? Can they easily just walk out of a house where they're constantly being abused, threatened, starved, sexually assaulted? How do they depart that? How do they get out of the situation? Oh, they can come talk to you, right? They can come talk to a counselor. They can come talk to an adult. But a lot of times the children are threatened. Because like I said, 90% of children who are abused, whether sexually or physically, are by people who they know. They closely know. I'm talking about family members, friends of family members, people they know very well. So when they get threatened, oh, if you go tell somebody, I'm going to hurt your mom, I'm going to hurt your dad. A child doesn't understand whether that's true or not. And their first thought that comes to their mind is not protect themselves, but protecting their family member. So they suffer in silence. And a lot of times when your mother When your daughter comes to you and tell you that her stepdad, her father, or your boyfriend is sexually assaulting her, what do you do as women? You so in love with that man that a lot of times you don't believe your own daughter. Oh, you a liar. You lied about drinking the orange juice. You lied about the F you got on your math test. You lied about all this other stuff. So you gotta be lying about him touching you. He wouldn't touch you. Why would he want you? He got a grown woman right here. He don't want you. Then she's deeper in suffering. That little girl suffers even deeper because you won't acknowledge it that she was abused by your boyfriend, your husband, her stepdad, her father. You don't want to acknowledge that because, see, then you're going to look at it as a woman and say, well, why doesn't he want me? Why does he want you and not me? As a man, we see our children, our sons, our daughters get sexually abused and we want to ignore it. And a lot of us talk the tough talk. Yeah, let something happen to my daughter, let something happen to my son. I'm going to do this and that. But then we ignore our children when they tell us they've been abused. Why? Because we're trying to maintain relationships, whether it's with our parents, our brother, our cousin, or uncle, grandparents. We're trying to maintain relationships, and those relationships become more important than what our children are experiencing. So our children are forced to suffer. They're already defenseless. Defenseless, so they can't defend themselves against their attackers, their abusers. But now you become their accuser. You become part of the problem, not the solution. We talk about women. And we talk about women a lot on this show. And a lot of things they go through. Women have to deal with a lot of sexual assault, sexual advances on the streets. They got to deal with people criticizing them about the way they dress. If they dress too revealing, then you say if they get raped, that they ask for it. But where does that make sense at? Ain't no woman wearing a sign saying they want to be raped. It's just because a woman wants to dress a certain way, because she feels comfortable in her body, doesn't mean she's welcoming any man or any person to take advantage of her body. So you got to ask yourself, where does common sense make with that? But let's talk deeper about it. When a woman goes to work, have to deal with sexual advances at work. Then you probably say, well, she can go talk to HR. She can talk to her manager. But then what are the consequences when it's her boss? What are the consequences? How is that going to work out for her when she goes and try to get that raise? So you think, with all the woman has to deal with outside the world, outside the home, she should have that safe zone at home, right? That should be her safety spot. That should be a place where she can go and she can get peace, where she can come and she can feel comfortable. Comfortable in her own skin, comfortable in her body. She can come and cry. A shoulder to cry on, someone to lean on to talk to. Her protector should be there. But what happens when her protector becomes her biggest abuser? I mean, she deals with a lot of verbal stuff outside. When she's walking down the street to go to the bus stop or go to work or even go to lunch, yeah, you got guys whistling at her, call her names when she doesn't respond. When she goes to work, she has her boss making sexually advances at her. But it's not a physical thing. But now when she comes home and she tells her husband about the sexual advances, what happens when her husband has a jealous rage and starts thinking like you do when you say, well, a woman wearing revealing clothes asks for someone to rape or attack her, and that husband gets in mindset that she asks for her boss to make the sexual advance to her, that she asks for the guy that is walking down the street up there whistling at her to make advance to her, that she asks for that type of attention, and then he turns his anger on her and starts beating her, smacking her around, throwing her into walls. What happens when it hurts for her to come home? And she holds this pain in for a long time. And then when she finally comes to you, months, years later, and tell you about the abuse, sexual, verbal, physical abuse that she's been dealing with, the only response is, why did you wait so long to say something? What are you hoping to get out of this situation? You're not thinking about, it shouldn't hurt for that woman to go home. It shouldn't hurt. But for a lot of women, it does. For too many women, it does. For too many women, it leads to, abuse leads to death. because women feel like they're trapped into a situation where they can't get out. Sometimes it's love. Sometimes it's more of a financial situation. Sometimes it's a more of a security situation, even though they're being abused. When you have children, when you don't know what to do, you don't know where to go, you don't know who to turn to. You sitting here and you know this person who's abusing you is your provider. And what do? I don't have any money to my name. I don't have a bank account. I don't manage the money because my husband or my wife manage the money. And then I don't know what to do. So I can't just leave them because I leave with nothing. Take the kids. Where am I going to go? Of course, everybody said that they're going to open their doors for you until it's time to actually do it. What does that woman do in that situation? What does that man do when he comes to you and tell you about the verbal abuse that his wife is giving him? What about the physical? You're going to laugh at him for physical. If he tells you about the verbal abuse that he's dealing with, you're going to tell him, man up. If he tells you his wife is abusing him because he's not making enough money at his job, maybe he's not aggressive enough where he's sitting here arguing and being disrespectful to his boss, and when people are down talking him to his wife, then she starts down talking. And she starts beating up his manhood. She starts knocking him down a few pegs, all the way down to there's nothing left. He comes to you and he tells you he's been mentally abused. He's hurt. He's dealing with depression. What you gonna say to him? Man up, man. You need to toughen up, man. That's probably why your wife talking to you the way she is, because look how you acting right now. You acting like a punk. You acting like a punk right now, man. You need to toughen up, man. That's why she's up there talking to you. That's why your wife treats you like she do, man, because you're acting like a punk. Why does he gotta be acting like a punk? Because he doesn't want to sit here and be disrespectful. Why can't it be that he's not acting like a punk? Why does it have to be his fault that he's being attacked? Why can't you give him some real advice, some real support, some real help? What's wrong with telling somebody it's going to be all right, you're not alone? What's wrong with telling somebody, I will help you? I'll help you get out. I'll help you build your confidence. What's wrong with telling somebody it's okay to be different? What's wrong with stepping in and helping these children who are being physically, sexually abused instead of protecting their abuser? The thing is, children didn't ask for being here. They didn't ask to be in this situation. And a lot of times they can't go nowhere. What are they going to do? Where were they going to run to? Say, run to the cops. Run to the cops. Now you got the burden of proof. You run to the cops, you got the burden of proof. You have something called due process, which we don't always have in this country, but you got something called due process. So now you have to prove that you were sexually assaulted. You got to prove that you was abused. So what are you going to do? The cops will go, they're going to go talk to the abuser. They're going to have a conversation with the abuser. They're going to have a meeting with your parents. They're going to have to sit here and you're going to have to face your abuser and tell them everything that happened. Relive that. Relive that as a child. Sit there and look the evil person who hurt you in the eyes and relive every single moment of that encounter where they beat on you or sexually assaulted you. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine that? And that person that abused you sitting here lying and convincingly lying to you. Convincingly lying to the police. Your parents sitting here telling you, well, my child's a liar. My child lies all the time. If you call school right now, they'll tell you they got suspended last week. They lie. She's a liar. He's a liar. Ain't nobody abusing him. I call him stealing change on my purse. Stole change on his purse because he's hungry. You're starving him. And the cops start to believe what the parents say. And you're thrust right back into a household. And sort of like that woman who spoke up to HR about her boss sexually advances. Now you're forced to be in that household. And now the abuse is ramping up because you have that stepdad or uncle or grandpop or dad sitting there. Not only they're still sexually abusing you, but now your mom's sitting there looking at you like you're the most worst thing. You're vile. You're the most worst thing that ever happened in the world. Every time you walk in the room, she's giving you a dirty look. She's calling you all kinds of names. She's beating you down. She's sitting there hitting you, beating you up. It hurts to go home because you spoke up about the truth that she didn't want to acknowledge, that she didn't want to experience. So many children, For so many people, this is the reality that they deal with. I know this is a very harsh and very touchy subject I'm speaking on right now, but trust me, I already told you before the year started, I'm going to get real in the dirt. We're going to get real deep into the stuff that y'all don't want to talk about because it's time to speak up. It's time to speak up. It's time to speak up on what people are experiencing. This is the realities of a lot of people's lives that we choose to actually ignore and not acknowledge. These people, these children, these women, they're going through it. These men, people are going through it. And a lot of times we beat our children with the mindset that we're beating our children because we're preparing them for something. Well, it's better if I beat my child rather than cops beat my child. Well, it's better if you have a conversation with your child. Is that so difficult? To have a conversation with your child? Yeah, your child may have lied about a few things. Yeah, they may have lied about getting an F on a test. They may have lied about what happened on recess. They may have lied about what they did in the cafeteria. But that doesn't mean they're lying about what somebody's physically doing to them. You got to know your child better than anybody else. You have to put your child above whatever relationship that you're trying to protect. And a lot of times as parents, we put our child in harm's way when we don't realize us as parents, we are supposed to be our child's protector. A lot of times as men, we abuse our women more than the outside world does it. Where we're supposed to give them safe haven, a place where they should be able to feel safe and free and protected. We force them to be abused, hurt, send them back into the world, beaten, broken, hurt, lost, with no one or nothing to turn to. All because you lost your job or somebody disrespected you or something happened there. It's so sad that this is the world we live in. It's so sad that we treat our children the way we do. But you may ask, what do we do about this? Because you're telling us all the bad that's happening in the world. What do we do about it? All right, let's start with the children. We're going to make this real quick. Somebody gave me some good advice. They said with their child, what they do is when their child goes to school, because like we said, most of the time our attackers are people we know. They give their child a cold word, like peanut butter. And if anybody, even if it's a family member, somebody know, come and pick you up from school, if they don't know the code word that I gave you for today, you do not go nowhere with them. You do not get in their car. You need to know that. They need to know that code word. Because anybody I send, no matter what they tell you, they're going to know the code word that only me and you know. So therefore, with your child, give them a code word. A code word where they understand that we both, only us two know. Individually with your children. A code word. This stays between me and you. Do not share this code word with your friends, your teachers, anybody. This code word stays between me and you. Because if anybody pick you up, we need to know that. Take time to listen to your children. See your children. Watch how your children's behavior is changing. You can see when something goes wrong. For the women who are dealing with this, you gotta find strength to be able to find someone who you trust, someone who you love and who loves you, that you can speak to help you get out of it. You can get out of abusive relationships. A lot of times you feel like, well, I don't know where I'm gonna go. I don't have money. There's shelters. There's places to go. It's okay to start over. I know it's hard, but it's okay to start over. It's okay to be happy, and no matter what you've been through, you deserve to be happy, and you don't deserve for a man to treat you the way he does, because he's truly not a man, he's a boy. Because any person or man who puts their hands on you is not a man who shouldn't be even with you, or shouldn't be deserving of you or your time. Because if he can't control himself enough to control his hands, I don't care how you speak to him. A man should be able to control himself and know that if it's turned to a situation where he has to get physically violent, that he needs to remove himself from that situation, whether it's from a moment or for good. He needs to remove himself from the situation because it's becoming a danger to not only himself, but to you. It's time for us as men to support other men who are dealing with physical and mental abuse from their other spouses, from their wives. To stop laughing when a man's going through something and understand that you too can be a subject to these abuses. It's time for us to stand up for people and have empathy for people, love and appreciation for people. It's time for us to stand up for children to say no more. It's time to decrease these numbers. It shouldn't be 700,000 children dealing with abuse. It shouldn't be so many women still being abused and murdered because of domestic violence. It's time for us to stand up and make a change, people. Just like in every other aspect of life when we talk about, it's time for us to make a change. But it's time for you to stop acting like you don't see what's going on, because you see it. You see it like I see it. You see it. Somewhere in your life right now, somewhere in your family right now, someone's being abused. Whether it's your sister, your cousin, your mother, your aunt, your grandmother, somebody's being abused. Whether it's your brother, your father, your cousin, or your son, your daughter, somebody's being abused. And it's more deeper than sex trafficking. That's a whole nother subject. That's a whole nother thing. Prepare our children, listen to our children. Do not put relationships above our children. Our own happiness, or our own imagination of what happiness is above our children, above the people we love. We need to stop trying to protect relationships with people who don't mean any well to us or the people we love, and start protecting the relationship we have with the people who we've been put on this earth to protect. The relationships, and start to protect those relationships, protect those children, protect your husband, protect your wife, protect the people, the loved ones that you have. You have to understand that nowadays, it's not the same as when we got beaten when we were kids. You can sit here and talk about how you got beaten and how it made you feel. You can talk about how it is the reason that it's shooting up movie theaters, but it's not. A lot of times, let me tell you what it does. Violence only increases violence. I don't see y'all taking gasoline or fire and trying to put out fire. Because what it's going to do is only going to increase the fire. So what you think by being violent to your child is going to do, really, sit down and think about what you're doing. When you're sitting there beating your children, think about it. So if your child went to school and beat somebody up, then he comes home and you beat him up, what the hell does that do? You're only teaching violence. When you sit yelling at your children, you're teaching them to express themselves by yelling. Think about this. When a child is sexually assaulted, if you don't give them the proper help, most likely they're going to go out and then they're going to sexually assault somebody. Think about it. Most 81% of people who were sexually assaulted deal with some kind of mental issues later on in life. If you don't deal with these problems, if you don't recognize these problems, you're only going to increase it, and you're only setting it up to continue on. So at some point, you got to sit down and think about how you can be part of the solution instead of the damn problem. We can stop a lot of stuff going on by simply dealing with it. Sitting down and dealing with it. Most sexual assault victims were sexually assaulted themselves, but nobody recognized it. Of course, you want to throw a person in jail when they do something, but you don't want to rehabilitate them. You don't want to rehabilitate them, understanding that they're past. No, I don't want to rehabilitate them. They're a monster. I don't want to deal with this person. We need rehabilitation. We need to help these people who've been hurt, who've been abused sexually, physically, mentally, verbally, because they're going to continue it on that trend if it's not rehabilitated. So we need to recognize these mistakes. We need to help the people who are victims of these crimes, but also try to rehabilitate these people who are causing these crimes, this hurt and this pain in your lives. It's time for us to make a change. It's time for you to stand up. Or are you going to do it, or are you going to sit here and keep ignoring it like we do with everything else? That's the only question I got for y'all. That's all I got left to say. So I want to say thank you for joining me for another episode of Past the Present Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Gray. Until next time I see you, I only got one last thing to say to you. Stay tuned. Peace.